Well, hello, Caitlin Moran.
Hello. This is a choice event. I've just spent 10 minutes talking to Claire Balding and Jamie Oliver backstage. I've also seen who's coming on next. I know it's secret, but I've just cancelled my cab and I'm staying for the whole event.
On that sofa, she's not going to budge. She's actually not going to let anyone else.
Those people will lie on top of me. They will come and they will be, I'm not leaving. This tonight ends very, very well.
What is your badge?
Oh, it's World Book Day.
Oh, there you go.
World Book Day. And let's sell some books and pay for my school fees day.
Right. How to Be Famous.
Yes.
Caitlin's book is called How to Be Famous, and when my son found it by my bed, he just went, "That's really tragic, Mum. If it hasn't, awful. He went, if it hasn't happened yet," he was trying to be said that if it hasn't happened yet, let it go. Let it go.
I hope you angrily went, "I'm on Wikipedia."
Do you know what? I started to explain that it wasn't a self-help book in the most obvious way, and then I thought, well, maybe it is a bit. It's everything. It's sort of bad sex and appalling parents and how to be an optimist throughout it all, isn't it?
Yes, very important to stay cheerful at all times. That is key. I mean, generally life breaks down into two categories. Terrible things that are awful at the time and that will later turn into amazing anecdotes, and things that are just enjoyable. The things that are just enjoyable, there's nothing really to write there. It's the things that are terrible when you're living through them, that's where you know, in 20 years' time, that's the raw bedrock of a book.
We quite like bad holidays, don't we? We like bad holidays when you come back and you can say,
"Oh, I'm going to have a moan."
Yes.
Exactly.
This is what happened. And do you feel that you are... I always feel when I read you, Caitlin, there's a younger woman, maybe it's a younger Caitlin that you're sort of talking to. You're saying, "Don't do it."
Yes.
But do it a little bit, but yes. Don't do it.
Yeah, maybe stop after the fifth whiskey. No, it is generally that. I mean, I think in one of my biogs at one point it said Caitlin Moran had absolutely no friends in 1990. And that was true. And that has been the kind of, everything that I write, I'm writing to myself when I was a teenager. The advice that I wish I'd been given at that point. The idea that you'd have some kind of Glinda-like fairy standing over you and going, this is a bad thing, do not do this. And How to Be Famous is... Because I moved down to London when I was 17 and immediately started hanging out with famous people. And they are a different species. They live completely different lives. For instance, really famous people will not own a coat. You don't need a coat.
Never need one.
No, because a car will come and pick you up, and then you've got to do red carpet, and then you will go in, pretend to be watching the film, and then you'll come back out again, straight in the car, and come back home. So just don't buy anyone famous a duffel coat. They're not going to use it. It's kind of, there's absolutely no need.
No hats,
no
wellies, no sensible shoes.
Also, physically, they always look different as well. Like most famous people have really big heads. They usually have massively, like an Easter Island statue on a teeny tiny body.
They should be easy to spot then.
It's like they're born like that. Basically, if you are giving birth to a child and you're really having to push for that head and it comes out looking like one of those little Panini football sort of figurines that we used to have in the 90s, you know straight away you've given birth to a future celebrity. That's how they have huge skulls that look great on screen. This is why I knew I would never be like properly famous. I've got a small, round peasant's face, and that's... I try and make it look bigger by compensatory hair, but this is just not big enough to be famous. It's not going to happen.
Do you write for women? Are you surprised when men read your books, or do you think it's whoever picks it up?
I sound a huge alarm and go, "We got one!" when a man reads it. Just
is that right?
1 of 4 this year. Yes. It's women. When I first started writing How to Be a Woman, however many years ago that was, 8 years ago, I read all the women's magazines and I read books that were written for women at that time, and I just had this massive sense of everybody just kind of waving their finger at women, just going, "Sort your minge out, love." That was kind of generally, it was just buy this handbag and sort your minge out. And it was this constant kind of scolding, and I was like, I want to be the person to put my arm around women and go, balls to this. This is ridiculous. Like, we cannot laugh about being women. It is insane business to be a woman. The idea that there is an industry of, you can have your bumhole bleached if you are a woman, if that's something that worries you, something that should be, something that, I mean, who is ever going to inspect that? Like, who are the bottom inspectors that are ever going to check that? But that's an industry. So it was like, if we can't make fun about this, and also I was constantly annoyed by this idea that women aren't funny. You would get people who I otherwise love, like Christopher Hitchens and Martin Amis, going, women cannot be funny. First of all, what is his social circle like? That he's just said all the women that he knows and the wives of all of his friends have never amused him. And secondly, if you go into a pub and listen for who is laughing the loudest, the crowd of people who are around a table going, I'm literally going to wet myself, please stop. People lying on the floor crying, laughing. It's women talking to other women. Men will just be going, yeah, it's a nice bit. Yeah, good point, mate. Women are like,
But what you also do, quite early on in the book, and I found this really refreshing, it's that when women have bad sex, they sort of assume it's their fault.
Yes.
And they've done something wrong.
Yes.
And there's this great, are we giving too much away?
No, go for it.
Great description.
All my books are about bad sex, so you're giving nothing away.
She is, let's say, that the heroine is in the middle of a sex act when the famous person puts on the telly of himself.
Yes, that happened to me.
No!
That was based on an actual famous person who put on his own TV show. I've had to sort of mystery that up a bit, but that literally happened. It was I was 17, and even I knew that was a bit wrong. But you're not sure. I mean, when you're 17, like kind of, and you're meeting, this whole thing of older men wanting to have sex with younger women is such a prevalent thing still. And I think in the next couple of years, the visuals on that are going to look increasingly weird. But when I first came to London, it was absolutely natural for teenage girls to be shagging men in their 30s and 40s. That's where the sex happened. And so when something like that's happening, you're having some bad sex, you're like, well, maybe this is normal. I don't know.
Maybe this is what people do in London.
Exactly. London sex. Posh London sex. Everything's different here. Or maybe this is something I will learn to like whiskey or olives. The first time you have, olives or whiskey or bondage, you're kind of like, oh, no. But maybe in time you'll get used to these things and be like, delicious being tied up in whiskey, that's the thing for me. They don't.
And do you think, I mean, this section is actually called not how to have bad sex with a celebrity who's watching themselves on TV, but how to make your voice heard.
Yes.
This is the same section with Michelle Obama.
Is she here?
Well, sort of, in her own ethereal way, she is. But
she's in us all.
She is.
Michelle in your arms.
But this, so I'm wondering whether you think the whole Me Too and the sort of social contract now is sort of catching up with stuff that you've been saying.
I mean, I invented Me Too, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
yes, I accept that point. Yeah. That was.
But not the hashtag, you've got that hashtag.
Yeah, no, but copyright-wise, that is, feminism is my idea. Well, I mean, it's an amazing time because the thing is that all change starts with people talking about the bad shit. You need kind of garrulous, slightly disgusting, filthy women to come along and go, here's all the awful things. These are the things that make us uncomfortable. These are the things that are making us cry. These are the things that are screwing us up. These are the things that we are laughing about, but these are horrible things that we prefer not to happen to our daughters, which is usually the moment that you realise you've had a terrible experience when you go, oh, it's a great anecdote, but if it happened to my daughter, I'd kill myself. So you have to put all this dirty stuff on the table first, and then that's when you start talking about change. So, it's part of a continuum. So every woman out there who's tweeting and telling these stories and putting them on Instagram or Facebook and writing these, so many women writing brilliant memoirs at the moment, you are helping that. Don't listen to people who go, oh, you're just washing your dirty linen in public. The dirty linen needs to be washed. And we know that. We're women. We have to wash linen all the time.
The dirty, the better.
Yes, exactly.
Right. But do you think that there is the patience and the appetite to keep on encouraging these voices? Will they still be listened to?
Well, there are because there are so many different ways of doing it. Obviously, my way of doing it is to be funny because I don't think anybody ever got to the end of the day and went, oh, I laughed too much today. Things were just too hilarious and too many amusing things were said. We are always going to want jokes, and the whole idea of being a woman is so innately ridiculous. You only have to watch RuPaul's Drag Race to see them, which is the gamification of being a woman, to see how ridiculous it is to be a woman, the things we have to wear and the things we have to do. So being funny about these things, and being a woman is like another planet. It's been still so little discussed and still so little explored. When we look at, there's a huge, brilliant campaign going on at the moment on the internet about female TV writers. Only 10% of drama in this country is written by women. So the women are still this huge unexplored country with all these untold stories, all these characters that we've not seen. I don't know, again, if we saw, the internet's been so great for this. There are trolls and there are rape threats, but there's also all this fun going out there. There's a gender flip app that showed all of the female prime ministers and American presidents as women. Yeah. That was mind-blowing. They showed the Beatles as women. And that was the one that blew my mind. It was like, imagine if the most revered human beings that we've ever had on this planet, these gods, had been Johanna Lennon and Paula McCartney and Georgina Harrison. Like, imagine what that would be like as a girl to have had these heroes who were just the most swaggering gods ever, and for boys, teenage boys, to have gone through a process where they were screaming at girls on stage.
Yeah. And how would you say the humour and anger sit in terms of what you're writing? how can you be angry and at the same time as being funny?
I think anger needs to be the start of it, but I do not let anger be the end product. So anger is a fuel that you have inside you, but if you communicate in anger, you see this time and time again. If you, activists who are rightly angry, female, women's activists, feminist activists, trans rights activists, people from the LGBT community, people of different colours, if you go on Twitter and you're angry, people actually won't listen to what you're saying 90% of the time. They will just respond in anger. And suddenly you, someone who is righteously angry, is just involved in massive arguments with people who are trying to derail you and trying to make you more emotional. Whereas if you use that anger as a fuel to communicate calmly, or very best, with humour, people are actually going to listen to the text of what you're saying. And I found that time and time again. I get my rape and my death threats, but far less than any other woman that I know on the internet.
So
that's my proudest achievement. Less rape threats than any other woman on the internet.
That's the badge on the other lapel, actually. So is there a Caitlin that sort of gets to Twitter or gets social media, thinks, this is what I want to say.
Yes.
Pauses.
Yes.
And then this is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, because it's like being a parent. Like, what you want to say to your children is, it hurt when you came out, and the last 20 years have been hell, and you cost me so much money, and you're an ungrateful shit. But what you actually say is, could you pick that towel up off the floor and pop it on the radiator? It will not dry itself on its own.
But your towels don't get picked up, do they? Whatever you say.
I pick up the towels.
Yes.
Let's not go into that now. That will make me angry. I will start communicating in anger. Those towels are on the floor right now.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I will go home.
now you know what really makes Caitlin Moran angry. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely great to have you and to bring us almost to the end of our first half. The author of How to Be Famous, Caitlin Moran, a warm welcome.